Alright, all honesty, Mass Effect Andromeda has a reputation. We all know it, we've all seen the memes of the early character models, but for this video, let's just set that aside and move forwards. Because the twist is that beneath the jankiness and drama surrounding the game, Mass Effect Andromeda still managed to nail some of the things that BioWare fans crave. Role-playing, character arcs, and yes, intergalactic romances. So today, I'm going to break down all the romance options in Mass Effect Andromeda. I'll be breaking it all down using my totally scientific, definitely peer-reviewed romance criteria, which includes the following. Character depth. Does the character have flaws, motivations, and an existence outside of the romance? Emotional depth. Does the romance fit naturally with the plot and shift with the story? Does the romance feel meaningful and deep? And relationship pacing. Does the relationship feel forced, or does it feel like it naturally flows and is a part of the bigger story? Each of these categories is going to be worth 5 points possible for a total potential value of 15 points. There are 2 romances in Andromeda that I will be excluding just because they're more of flings rather than full-on romances, so I will not be talking about Avella and Carrie in this video. Also, I'm going to try as much as possible to avoid any major spoilers, but there may be some implications or references to events in the main story of the game. Just wanted to give you a heads up. I think that covers everything. Let's get into it. Up first is Cora Harper. Cora is one of the first companions you meet in Andromeda, and she comes with a lot of history. She trained with Ryder's father for the original Pathfinder team, meaning she knows the mission inside and out, and honestly, she expected to be the one awarded the Pathfinder title, so initially, she's not throwing a party that Ryder was chosen. Cora can be romanced by a male Ryder only. For character depth, I gave Cora a 3 out of 5. All honesty, this is going to be subjective for a moment. For me, Cora never quite landed as a well-rounded character. Don't get me wrong, she's incredibly capable, extremely mission-focused, and undeniably accomplished. But beyond that, there's not a whole lot there. And you will hear about her history training with the Asari Commandos approximately 100 times, at least.
I served with Asari Commandos, ma'am. Memorized all your battle manuals.
It's impressive, no doubt, but it does feel almost like it's the only thing that stood out about her character, and so they leaned a little too hard into it and reminding you about it over and over again. Cora is not a bad character, she's far from that, but she's a bit one-note and lacks the charm or distinctive quirks and depth that make other teammates really stand out. For emotional depth, I gave this romance a 3 out of 5. Cora's romance arc could have been a 5 out of 5. There's already this built-in tension between her and Ryder. Cora feels passed over, she's frustrated, and she's wrestling with her identity and her purpose. That's a perfect setup for emotional conflict, personal growth, and even some challenging conversations. But the game never really goes there. Cora is upset one moment, and then she's just not. The transition is almost abrupt, and the romance ends up feeling more like a missed opportunity than a meaningful, deep love story. For the pacing of this relationship, I gave it a 3 out of 5. The pacing itself isn't terrible. It moves at a steady pace throughout the game, but again, the lack of resolution to that initial conflict drags down the believability at best, and at worst, it could almost feel like there's some things that are totally unhandled in this relationship that really should be addressed. One minute, Cora's clearly resentful and jealous of Ryder, and then next, the two are flirting like nothing happened. Overall, this isn't necessarily bad, it's just fine. And with a character who really had a lot of potential for depth, fine really ends up feeling disappointing. Overall, I gave this romance a 9 out of 15. Next, let's talk about Reyes Vidal. Reyes is a morally gray, bad boy companion who Ryder will encounter on Kadara. Reyes is confident, smooth, and always unpredictable. Reyes can be romanced by a male or female Ryder. For character depth, I gave Reyes a 3 out of 5. Reyes combines intrigue, danger, and charisma. He's upfront about prioritizing money over morals, but somehow still manages to be charming and entertaining.
Name the time and place. I'll be there.
That's the spirit. Don't be a stranger, Pathfinder.
He's very much the classic, charismatic rogue type of character, which works well for the drama of Kadara, which for me was one of the highlights of the game. That being said, Reyes doesn't get much development beyond his external charisma and personality. So while he's fun, he doesn't feel as deep or layered as some other romance options do. The emotional depth of this romance, I gave it a 4 out of 5. Romancing Reyes is really a matter of personal taste. He's deceitful and morally flexible and always keeps you guessing. But if you're willing to ride with a more villainous, unpredictable character for a while, there's a lot of charm and excitement to be had. It's a romance built on risk and dishonesty, which makes it unique in the game, even if it isn't the most emotionally safe. For the pacing of this romance, I gave it a 3 out of 5. The pacing of Reyes' romance is a bit rough. He gets much less screen time than most other main romance options do, which can make his relationship feel very underdeveloped. On top of that, commitment to him locks you out of any other romances, which is a bigger deal given the limited amount of content in his romance. It's fun and exciting, but players looking for a fully fleshed out, complicated, detailed romance might feel a little bit ripped off with this one. Overall, I gave this romance a 10 out of 15. Next up is Gil Brodie. Gil is the Tempest's chief engineer, and he's like the resident wise guy.
Hey, Ryder. What's the story?
Gil is a male writer-only romance option, and his romance is definitely one of the more unique romances in the game. So let's talk about it. For character depth, I gave Gil a 4 out of 5. Gil's background is a bit of a mystery, though he does share that he was primarily raised by a single mother. You won't get to know a ton of early life information about him, but pieces do start to come together as you talk with him and interact with the rest of the crew. What we do know is quite obvious. Gil is someone who's friendly, witty, and genuinely enjoyable to be around. He doesn't go through massive character development over the course of the game, but he is navigating a huge moment in his life, helping his close friends start a family. This storyline comes up a lot for Gil and is really one of his defining arcs, whether Ryder is supportive or not. For the emotional depth of this romance, I gave it a 4 out of 5. Gil and Ryder have very palpable chemistry. Their banter is sweet, playful, and feels very natural. What really makes Gil's romance unique is the theme of family, the idea of building one, being part of one, and figuring out what that means for Gil and Ryder in this new home. It's a storyline that you don't see very often in BioWare romances, or really romances in general, and it could have been very impactful here, except that it really didn't get as much screen time as it should have. The emotional beats are good, but they don't get enough space to breathe and fully play out, leaving the whole romance feeling just a little bit underdeveloped. For the pacing of this romance, I gave it a 3 out of 5. The pacing here is a little uneven. On one hand, you've got a fun, flirtatious chemistry, and on the other, the story is asking you to buy into a major commitment, potentially raising kids together and supporting each other through it. But the relationship doesn't really build to that level of seriousness. There just aren't enough grounded, deeper moments to match the weight of that commitment. So the romance works, and there are very strong moments, but the pacing makes it feel like something is missing. Overall, I gave this romance an 11 out of 15. Next, let's talk about Suvi Anwar. Suvi is the Tempest's science officer whose bright personality can be found on the Tempest near the galaxy map. Suvi can be romanced by a female writer only. For character depth, I gave Suvi a 4 out of 5. Suvi is genuinely charming. She's thoughtful, curious, and incredibly dedicated to her work and to the mission. Even though she doesn't join the team on missions out in the world, she still contributes in major ways, brainstorming ideas, troubleshooting problems, and offering support in a kind and generous way. Like Gil, Suvi's backstory is not explored as deeply as other companions, but she does share her strong beliefs with Ryder and engage in philosophical debates. Exploring a new galaxy leads Suvi to dive deeper into her beliefs and explore the role that they play in her new life.
I found God, but your work as a scientist convinced me even more, especially when I got into molecular biology, physics. The patterns I kept seeing over and over again, they were like an artist's watermarks. God, to me, is an artist, an inventor, not someone checking to see if I brush my teeth.
For emotional depth, I gave this romance a 5 out of 5. Suvi really shines in this area. Her romance with Ryder is built on deep philosophical conversations, the kind where you discuss science, faith, the universe, and what it means to be in the position that they are in. These moments between the two feel natural, intimate, and grounded in mutual respect. Theirs is a relationship that is focused on connections of the mind, celebrating each other's strengths and perspectives. It's also a slow burn. The emotional beats come more from small moments and passing interactions than full-blown, intense, dramatic cutscenes. If you love thoughtful, introspective romances, Suvi is your girl. For the pacing of this romance, I gave it a 3 out of 5. Because Suvi's relationship develops through conversations and check-ins, rather than big cinematic moments, there can be long stretches where the relationship doesn't feel like it's moving forwards. For some players, that slow, steady build will feel authentic, while for others, it can make the relationship feel underdeveloped. It's not so much that the pacing is bad, it's just very dependent on what kind of emotional rhythm you're looking for in a romance. Overall, I gave this romance a 12 out of 15. Next up, let's dive into Liam Kosta. Liam is a crisis response specialist, one of the earliest members of your team, and someone who feels immediately approachable.
Looks like we're gonna find some high ground. See if anyone else is alive. Come on.
He's friendly, easygoing, and forms a natural bond with Ryder as the adventure unfolds. If you're playing as a female Ryder, that friendship can absolutely turn into something more, if you want. For character depth, I gave Liam a 5 out of 5. Liam is definitely one of the more multi-dimensional human companions in Andromeda. He's got clear passions and motivations for joining the initiative, but he also carries fears and personal pressure that make him feel more grounded and complicated. Liam does have a tendency to leap before he looks, sometimes causing adventures you definitely didn't sign up for, but the important thing is that he means well, he owns his mistakes, and he genuinely wants to do right by the team and everyone that's depending on them. He's flawed, but in a very relatable way. For the emotional depth of this romance, I gave it a 4 out of 5. Liam and Ryder have a natural chemistry. Their banter is playful and their personalities feel very complementary to each other. There's a real feeling of partnership. They support each other, they joke around, and they show up when it counts. That being said, some of their flirtatious dialogue can land a little awkwardly at times. There are definitely moments where the vibes shift from charming and cute to sort of uncomfortable, but overall, their emotional connection is sincere and engaging. For the pacing of this romance, I gave it a 4 out of 5. The pacing here works really well. Liam's romance unfolds alongside the main story in a way that feels tied to the journey you're both on. Nothing comes out of nowhere, each step feels like a natural progression of the time you spend together. It's one of the more cohesive romances in the game. Overall, I gave this romance a 13 out of 15. Let's talk about Jaal Ama Darav. Jaal is an Angaran warrior who joins Ryder early on. Already a respected member of the Angaran resistance against the Ket, Jaal is a major presence in the story and can be romanced by a male or female writer. For character depth, I gave Jaal a 5 out of 5. Jaal is easily one of the most developed characters in the game. He's outspoken, loyal, and incredibly dedicated to the Angaran cause, but what makes him truly compelling and enjoyable is the contrast between his strength and his sensitivity. Jaal is curious, openly emotional, and genuinely interested in Ryder and their companions. With Jaal, there are numerous layers. He's a warrior, a diplomat, and an overall sweetheart.
I'd like your advice on something. I'm making gifts for everyone. I have a list.
For emotional depth, I gave this romance a 5 out of 5. Jaal and Ryder's romance grows directly out of a strong, sincere friendship. It feels healthy, supportive, and emotionally grounded. Jaal is expressive to a degree you don't often see in video game romances. He says what he feels and openly shows his affection, never leaving Ryder guessing. On top of that, because he's so closely tied to the main plot and the Angaran story arc, romancing him adds emotional weight to major moments in the campaign. This romance is both thematically integrated and genuinely heartfelt. For the pacing of this relationship, I gave it a 3 out of 5. The pacing of Jaal's romance is solid and flows naturally as your relationship deepens throughout the story. But there's one thing that is noticeably missing, and that's navigating the cultural differences in this romance. Human Angaran relationships logically would come with unique challenges, misunderstandings, or at least the need for conversations that discuss their widely different experiences and backgrounds. How to be supportive partners to someone that maybe you don't fully understand. And yet, this is never really explored. This to me is especially noticeable because the other cross-species romances in the Mass Effect series, like human Asari romances or human Turian romances, really do address cultural differences quite directly. I mean, let's not forget, Morden will send Shepard reading materials about their romantic partner's anatomy, and he'll try to have a conversation with you about, getting to that point with your partner and what that could be like. So it's a different approach for sure. It doesn't ruin the romance by any means, but it does leave a gap where something richer could have been, something more emotionally intimate, where they're able to be vulnerable with each other and talk about their experiences and come to an understanding about how to best be supportive for each other, even though they have these differences. Overall, I gave this romance a 13 out of 15. Let's talk about Vetra Nyx. Vetra is a Turian smuggler turned mercenary with a ton of life experience and even more powerful connections. She's resourceful, sharp, and someone you're always glad to have watching your back.
Seen you around. Ben, right? Came here with a family, didn't you? Son still in cryo? I could pull some strings, get him to the front of the line.
Vetra can be romanced by a male or female writer. For character depth, I gave Vetra a 5 out of 5. Vetra feels like a fully realized character from the moment you first meet her. She's lived a rough, complicated, and interesting life before the initiative ever launched, and that experience shows in everything that she does. She's clever, she's quick on her feet, and has a smart, slightly sarcastic sense of humor that pairs beautifully with Peebee's sense of humor. In all seriousness, if you haven't taken these two out in the field together, I highly recommend it. It's really funny. Vetra is incredibly loyal, fiercely protective of the people she cares about, and she balances maturity with this sense that she's still growing and striving to carve out something better in this brand new galaxy. Vetra is layered, she's grounded, and she's quite compelling. For the emotional depth of this romance, I gave it a 5 out of 5. If you want a stable, loving, genuinely supportive partner, Vetra is one of the best choices in Andromeda. Her relationship with Ryder is built on trust, mutual respect, and emotional steadiness. There's not a lot of angst or drama like there is in some video game romances, that stuff that's supposed to sort of keep you on the edge of your seat. This romance is about a developing bond between two people who get each other. Vetra's personal journey, especially her desire to create something better for herself and those she cares about in Andromeda, is touching to experience alongside her. It's a romance that feels healthy in a way that games don't always prioritize. For the pacing of this relationship, I gave it a 3 out of 5. This, unfortunately, is where things dip a little bit. Despite how strong of a foundation Vetra's character and emotional arc create for the romance, her romance doesn't get nearly as much screen time as others in this game. There are fewer scenes featuring flirtation, fewer focused conversations, and fewer moments that really feel like they are pushing the relationship forwards. It just feels underdeveloped, underfeatured, if you will. Players who fall for Vetra may find themselves wishing that the romance was more fleshed out, especially given the solid chemistry and foundation that is set. Overall, I gave this romance a 13 out of 15. Finally, let's talk about Peebee. Peebee is encountered early on in the game and immediately makes an impression. She's outspoken, independent, and very funny.
Maybe you want to knock me down a couple more times to make sure. No, that's okay. You're obviously corporeal. Pretty solidly built, actually.
Peebee can be romanced by a male or female writer, and her romance is one of the most rewarding in Andromeda. For character depth, I gave Peebee a 5 out of 5. On the surface, Peebee is playful, sarcastic, and a little flippant, but beneath that humor is a deeply layered character. Peebee is grappling with fears about opening up and proving herself. Over the course of the game, she experiences meaningful growth as a member of the Pathfinder team. The beauty of Peebee's character is watching her flippant, sarcastic exterior slowly give way to vulnerability and depth. Her intelligence, passion for discovery, and unique personality make her one of the most memorable companions in the game. For emotional depth, I gave this romance a 5 out of 5. Peebee's romance is incredibly rewarding because it mirrors her personal growth. At first, she's emotionally distant and a bit chaotic, but as she and Ryder commit to each other, build trust with each other, you see her vulnerability and genuine care emerge. It takes time to earn her trust, which makes the relationship feel realistic and earned. When Peebee is all in, she's all in, passionate, supportive, and wholly invested in the partnership. Her emotional arc makes this one of the most satisfying and sweet romances in Andromeda. For the pacing of this relationship, I gave it a 5 out of 5. The pacing of Peebee's romance is perfect because it mirrors real trust building. It's not slow due to a lack of content. There's actually quite a bit of content for this romance. It's slow because it's believable. This is two people gradually opening up to each other, navigating insecurities, and learning to lean on each other. By the time the romance fully develops, it feels earned, natural, and incredibly satisfying. This romance is basically a textbook example of a slow burn done right. Overall, I gave this romance a 15 out of 15. So there you have it. That is my breakdown of the main romances in Mass Effect Andromeda. Who are your favorites? Who are your least favorites? What did you think of the way that the romances and characters in general were written in this game? Let's talk about it in the comments. If you like more content like this, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.